Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well. My name's Katie and I make book-related videos every single Wednesday, and I know I did not post a video last week, but life's been a little crazy. I've been trying to, this is gonna sound cheesy, but just say yes to doing more things. I generally am on my couch right there for a big percentage of my life, so just been working a lot more, doing stuff on the weekends, so just didn't have a time for a video last week, but I'm very happy to be back. And today I'm gonna be reviewing a book which is Hunger by Roxane Gay, and I have been meaning to read one of her books for such a long time. I'm sure many of you have read this book or you've read Bad Feminist. I had heard of her for a long time. A lot of my friends absolutely adore her books, her writing. I had heard of her a lot through them. I don't know if you can hear that, but it's my AC starting, so I'm gonna go turn that off. I have to say, this Georgia heat is not a joke, and if you guys follow me on Instagram and you saw me go to that Dollhead Trail last weekend, that was a very short hike and I was absolutely dead for the rest of the day because this heat, I mean, that short of a hike, it wasn't even a hike, it was literally flat. There was no hiking involved. But anyway, what really pushed me to finally actually read one of her books was she was a guest on Bitch Sesh, which is one of my favorite podcasts. So immediately following that, went to Libby, which is the library audiobook app, and downloaded it. So as usual, I'm going to get into a summary, pros and cons as always. And I do want to say, I'm not going to be like, this video has spoilers, this video has no spoilers. This is a memoir of her body. So I'm just going to give a high level overview, but I don't consider anything I'm going to say a spoiler because this is her life. So for a quick summary, I will just give out a couple of trigger warnings. So this book does deal a lot with eating disorders and also rape. So I wanted you guys to be aware of that if you're thinking about going into and reading this. Roxane opens up by saying that this is one of the most, or if not the most difficult thing that she has ever written. And in short, the book details when she was gang raped when she was 12 years old and how that subsequently led her to have this difficult relationship with food, where, as she says repeatedly in the book, she eats and eats and eats as this way to kind of shield herself and protect herself from what happened. And it's definitely, as I already said, it is a memoir of her body. You know, she says this isn't the type of book where you're gonna feel elated when it ends. She's gonna be standing, you know, in one pant leg of her previously large jeans. That's not this kind of book. And I think if you see negative reviews, which I'll get into in a little bit, I think it's because maybe people wanted it to be more uplifting than it is, when again, this is the story of her body. So for my first two pros, and these are gonna be very obvious, and I think anybody who enjoys her work will say the exact same. First, her prose were incredibly beautiful, and I had very, very high expectations, especially from interviews I've seen with her. If you like the way she speaks in interviews, not surprisingly, you're gonna really enjoy the way that she writes. And I would also highly recommend, especially since this is her body's memoir, listening to her read it as an audiobook. I definitely don't think it would have been the same experience reading it. So if you do have the Libby app, for those of us who are maybe a little too cheap for Audible, I highly recommend checking it out there. And it's gonna sound very cheesy as my third pro to say that she's so brave to write this, when I do think she is, but more specifically within that, I would say that when you read a lot of memoirs from authors, there will be times where they don't put themselves in the best light, and we say that they're brave, but then it always feels like they'll put themselves in a negative light, and then the next chapter it's positive, and you can tell that they're trying to kind of offset anything bad that they showcase about themselves or that's happened to them. That was definitely not the case in this book. Some of what you're reading is incredibly difficult to read, and especially, for example, when she talks about relationships with men or women that she's been in, there are times where she talks about some shitty people that she's been with, but she's also very aware of the fact that sometimes she was also the shitty person in that relationship. And so I just really respected that, even though she is angry at the world. I know a lot of reviews I saw, and this is kind of getting into some of those negative reviews I saw, a lot of them were just very angry, and they felt that she was just blaming the outside world for anything that happened to her. And I did not get that sense. I don't know if some of us were reading the same book, but I thought that she also put a lot of blame on herself as well. It also just taught me a lot. You know, I have family and friends who are overweight, but it's one thing to talk with them and it's another thing to read an entire memoir about this subject. She talks about how people are constantly giving advice to people who are overweight, and they're like, why don't you just do the keto diet? Why don't you just do intermittent fasting? Why don't you do XYZ? And she's she's just like, people who are overweight know that they're overweight, and they know that if they eat less and work out that they're obviously going to lose weight. So again, I'm not saying I was one of those types of people, but I just think it doesn't matter what weight you are. I think this would be a very good book for anybody to pick up, and it's going to impact everybody in a different way, but I think it's so worthwhile. I thought long and hard about cons for this book, and I really didn't have any. Again, if I saw people have cons about it, I think they were just angry that she seemed angry, but that's definitely not something that I'm gonna knock this book or ding it for. And I did want to talk about one review that I saw, and I'm not like naming the review or calling this person out because, you know, their opinion's very valid as well, but they gave it 1 star and they said that they were very upset that at one point she's kind of idolizing people who are anorexic, because Roxane says that, you know, she wishes that she could have the willpower to be anorexic. So I know a lot of people took issue with that, but you know, in that same paragraph, she is saying that she understands that that is a shitty, awful mindset. But I think many of us, if any of us have had eating disorders or struggled with our weight, I know that even in like the 8th grade, and I went to a very small school out in the country, so we all knew everything about everybody. And at one point, I would say in the 8th grade, at least 25% of the girls were bulimic. And for some girls, it was about their weight, and they were either open about it or hiding it. And for me, it was more so because I didn't have control of my body, because I was wearing this giant back brace because I have scoliosis. But I think all of us at some point had that same thought that she talks about in that one paragraph, where, you know, you're watching a documentary about people with anorexia and you're thinking, oh, I wish that I had the willpower to do that. And then in the same breath, you're like, you're being an idiot. That's a horrific mindset to have. So I don't think that's necessarily something worth judging her over. I think it's a thought many of us have had, and then simultaneously said that's a horrible mindset to have. But please, if you've read the book, especially that section, let me know what you think about it, because I know a lot of people have very differing opinions on that. And I know a lot of people just have very differing opinions on this book overall, so whether or not you enjoyed it, please let me know what you thought. And if you've read Bad Feminist or Difficult Women, definitely let me know what you thought about them and which one you think I should check out next, because I'm hands down for sure gonna be checking out her books again. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I will see you guys next Wednesday, and actually next Wednesday I will see you in my old high school bedroom because I'm taking a trip home. But I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of the week, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.